بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
سبيل الدموع سبيل مريح، تنهدى يا صاحي كي تستريح، وبث الدعاء الخفي الصريح، يسعك الفضاء الرحيب الفسيح. سبيل الدموع سبيل مريح، تنهدى يا صاحي كي تستريح، وبث الدعاء الخفي الصريح، يسعك الفضاء
الرحيم. ونصلي على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I just want to today discuss the concept of Islamic dress. For instance, the hat, the jubba. Is there such a thing as Islamic dress? Did the Prophet ﷺ wear a hat as part of his Islamic dress, or did he wear it as he was an Arab? Did the Prophet ﷺ wear a jubba? Did he wear a kurta, salwar kameez? How can we consider, or should we consider these as religious dresses? First, let's look at the issue of the hat itself. We have a number of narrations in which the Prophet ﷺ clearly mentions that clearly mentions regarding the Prophet that he wore a hat, whether it's the one we find in Tabrani, in which Abdullah ibn Umar narrates that he used to wear a white hat. Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala mentions that the Sahaba used to perform sajda upon their turbans and upon their amama and their hats, and also within Sunan Abu Dawud and Tirmizi as well, where the Prophet was heard by Rukana radiallahu anhu, in which he says, I heard the Messenger saying the difference between us and the polytheists is that when we wear amamas, we wear them over hats. So clearly he's making a point there upon the difference. And if you've had opportunity to watch the other video in which we discussed wearing shoes whilst praying, and the Prophet in that particular hadith mentioned that we should differentiate ourselves from the Jewish community who remove their sandals rather when they pray. And as I mentioned to you in that video, and I'll just repeat here, is that when it came to social activity, then there was no need for the Prophet to differentiate, because in social activity we see that the Prophet living in Medina lived together with the Jewish community and with parts of the polytheist community and even smaller factions of other members of faiths and no faiths. Yet he found no objection to that. They jointly defended the land against a common enemy, and likewise they went to war, or they had agreed to go to war against a common enemy. So you can see on the civic level, the Muslims didn't differentiate themselves at all from the other communities that they found themselves with. However, when it came to on the religious level, then in terms of the religious identity, the Prophet was quite keen in differentiating between the Muslims and the Jewish community, in order not for that misconception to be to go further, which was that Islam had been seen as a sect of Judaism, and therefore it was felt by some quarters, some communities, that the Prophet had already learnt what he had learnt from the books of the Jews or the book of the Christians, and that's where he had found his new religion. Clearly that was their understanding and not the Asl understanding. And it's interesting, and the reason why I reminded you of that was because here we also see that the Prophet says the difference between us and the polytheists is that when we wear our mamas, we wear them over hats. Now, as I mentioned to you before, that when it came to a type of activity or identity in which it was a civic social activity, then the Prophet himself would not differentiate. I've just mentioned to you how they would collectively be involved in those things. But when it came to religious issues, then the Prophet was quite keen and adamant in differentiating. So the fact that the Prophet has mentioned that, and this hadith comes in Sunan Abu Dawud and Sunan Tirmizi, the fact that he's mentioned that when we wear our mamas, we wear them on hats, and whereas the mushrikeen, when they wear them, they don't wear them on hats. So wear them, in essence what he's saying is that wear them with hats, is suggesting that this is actually a religious dress, that it's not something which is a civil dress, because The reason why I say that is because the polytheists in Mecca were also Arabs, as were the Muslims in Medina. They were also Arabs, and they wore Arab dress. But the Prophet was quite keen to differentiate with this particular type of dress. So that clearly shows the hat itself and the imam itself also carries religious significance. Not only that it carries religious significance, it's also obviously points to the fact that it's now become a symbol of Muslims. So if you've watched the video when I've talked about following a madhab, then you see that clearly following a madhab, we've generated lots of material after the Prophet ﷺ in which a definition or an identity has been brought about. And the hat itself is the way a Muslim is identified, like the way the skull cap is an identifier for the Jewish community, like the beard is now for the Muslim community, or a woman practicing hijab is an identity of a Muslim woman. So we're starting to see that this is now taken on a form. And because it has taken on this form, it also now carries even further significance. So in short, in answering the question, is wearing a hat a religious requirement, then clearly without any shadow of doubt it is a sunnah. That's been proven. Secondly, it is not just an Arab tradition. Had it been an Arab tradition, then also you'd have found that the polytheists in Mecca would also have been involved in that practice. Secondly, the Prophet ﷺ himself would not have suggested to differentiate from the polytheists. Otherwise, he would have told them to differentiate in other ways as well, in terms of riding animals, in terms of other type of dress, in terms of food. He didn't. When it came to food, he didn't stipulate anything that you can't eat that particular food, apart from obviously what was made haram in terms of swine and those animals which were slaughtered in the name of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So by the fact that he's mentioning this is again emphasizing that it's a religious symbol. So I feel that's a short response in clearly suggesting and highlighting that the wearing of the hat is a sunnah, and it's also a symbol of Islam, and it's a religious identity which Muslim men should adhere to. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وبث الدعاء الخفي الصريح يسعك الفضاء